Hi, Nat. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We've been speaking for like 20 minutes.
I know.
So it feels a bit awkward to like start the conversation again. But thank you so much, really, for being here with me today, for being with us. I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Thanks for having me.
As we were reflecting also about like our journey, you were on the podcast 5 years ago on Zoom. It was during COVID days.
It was.
And we spoke about your journey with yoga, and it was so interesting because back then I feel like we were both very different, and we've changed a lot over the last 5 years.
True.
5 years is half a decade.
Crazy.
A bit crazy to think
It's
about.
like yesterday. But yet so much has changed. And it was during COVID, so that time itself was just an incredibly crazy time. And we did it via Zoom, and I think it's a really powerful episode. Yeah.
It was a very powerful episode. I mean, just sitting with you is always a very powerful and transformative time. So I'm really grateful to be here and to see where this conversation takes us. You have had many different lives behind the camera, teaching yoga, opening up your yoga studio in Saudi and Jeddah, being a trailblazer really in that space and doing something that was pretty new. And then now moving to Dubai, being a mother of 2 boys, still teaching yoga, but also really getting into homeopathy.
Yep.
And that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about because
It's my favorite topic.
it's your favorite topic right now.
Right.
So perhaps even just sharing a little bit about that, or how it is that you stumbled upon homeopathy in the first place.
Yeah. So what's amazing is what you said was that I had so many different lives, in the sense that I've gone through film and then through yoga and then eventually gotten into natural medicine or alternative medicine, which is the foundational medicine. And I really think it's all really interconnected, because when I was a filmmaker and as a documentary filmmaker at the time, I was traveling around the world's tribes. I went to the Amazon, sat with the people of Sariaku. I went to Guatemala, lived with the Mayans. And that's where I saw how people were really working with the land, and they were listening to nature, and they were using the world's first pharmacy, which is nature and plants. So before pills were the plants. And when I would sit amongst these tribal people and their ancestral wisdom, I was just, I was there to film a completely different story, but I was really receiving a lot more than I expected. And it really stuck with me. I remember this one time in the Amazon, I got a spider bite, and it was quite bad. And the shaman came and took a plant. I really can't remember the name of the plant. And he hit the plant against my foot, and it was a few hours later, and my foot was completely healed. It was incredible. It was magic. And that sparked something within me. Eventually went into teaching yoga, which has been such an incredible path for me, and getting into Reiki and energy, which was all really powerful. And now really getting into plant medicine, working with herbs, working with homeopathy, which is an incredible form of medicine. And now as a mom, I feel like I can be the first line of defense for my family. And it's so empowering.
So while you were speaking, so many things sparked because, first of all, you are the one that really sparked my journey before I even met you, with your cousin Ruby talking extensively about you.
Shout out to Ruby.
Shout out to Ruby, exactly. She spoke about you nonstop. And my cousin Nat does this. She does something called Reiki. And now she's in Bali and she's doing her yoga teacher training. And again, this was at a time, we're talking over 10 years ago, right? And I remember just being really inspired, even though I never met you, because I was like, wait a minute, like, we have people in our region that are exploring this. Like, that means I can do that too. So it led me to learning about Reiki, getting certified as a practitioner there, going down my yoga teacher training. And so your light really has that kind of effect on people. So I just wanted to re-mention that to you, because it's so important, I feel, to recognize where we source from and who sparked our light. And you definitely did that for me.
Well, it's an honor, and you have done so much more for me. So I'm really blessed to know you and to be part of your journey.
Thank you.
Reiki was a life changer for me because we talked a little bit about this on your episode 5 years ago. But when I was around 6 years old, I was caught in a fire, and it really affected me. As I grew, bless my mom. My mom was super affected by it. It got, she was really processing that grief of almost losing me, and these experiences get stuck in your body. And she was seeing a lot of therapists, and so she started to take me to see some of those therapists. And therapy is amazing, but it didn't move me. It didn't do much for me until my mom's friend said, hey, I think you should take her to an energy healer. And there's this incredible energy healer called Nawal Fleihan. Mm-hmm. And I went to Nawal Fleihan, and that was it for me. Once I did my first Reiki session, it opened up a portal for me that forever changed me. And starting off with energy, eventually moving into yoga, today I use those two to create what we call movement medicine, where we're able to move stagnant energy in the body and stagnant chi in the body in order to regain a sense of ease. And so the movement of yoga becomes not only physical, but highly spiritual. And so we connect with the life force energy, we connect with the abundant source, light, divine, and allow that to flow through us with ease. And the issue is when we get stagnant in certain areas in the body through emotions like anger or guilt or shame, these get held in the body and they create dis-ease or disease. And so what I'm starting to really understand is that movement can be medicinal when you combine it with the imaginary world, with your imagination, with your visualization, and with your intention. And then you move into the breath and you move into the movement, into this incredible movement where you work with that chi, with that life force energy to flow through you with ease. And just like blood flows through our veins, qi moves through our meridians. Traditional Chinese medicine really focuses on this and really discusses how energy is held in the body, emotions are held in the body. For example, anger is held in our liver, and fear is held in the kidneys. Grief is held in the lungs. Stress, anxiety is held in the colon or in the intestines. And once you really kind of use that knowledge and move through and visualize your liver, right, and the anger that it carries, and then use the power of the exhale, the intention of the exhale, you lengthen the exhale and just imagine that you're releasing that anger from the liver, there is something that happens. And for some, they come into the class and they think, oh, what's all of this EGBG talk, right? But something shifts, something moves. The electromagnetic field changes, their frequency rises, and they tap in. They tap into that source, to that light. And they come back into that remembering that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and it's incredibly powerful. And you can receive that light through the crown of the head, right? And that's what Reiki teaches us, pranic healers, etc. That light comes in through the crown of the head, almost like a waterfall. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, and you can bathe in it, and it's endless, and it's abundant, and it's available to all of us. Not that you're a healer or not a healer. We've all got that connection with the divine. You can get it through nature. Right, being with nature. You can get it through so many different resources. You can get it through people. People can become portals. And trusting in the imaginary world, I think, is really important.
Mm. When you were talking about that light coming through the crown of the head, I visualize that right now in this moment. So to whoever is listening, you can do that at any time, really. I feel like sometimes we reserve certain things for certain moments, like, okay, when I'm doing my meditation or if I'm in a yoga class, but we can really just visualize that anytime, anywhere. Absolutely. If we're feeling down or we're feeling great, I feel like, again, it can be something to stay connected to that unconditional love and stream of light that flows through all beings everywhere. And Reiki was definitely for me an initiation in many ways, because it's what allowed me to understand that we live in a world of energy. Because I feel like I was living perhaps in like kind of a one-dimensional world for a while, and I feel many of us do feel that way or live that way, where we don't see the depths and the heights and the layers, and we don't really understand the energetic world very well. And I feel like Reiki at least gave me more of that deeper understanding as to the energies that live inside the body and how it can get stuck and stagnant. And talking about the yoga journey too, for me, was very spiritual from the get-go, which was very interesting to me, because I didn't expect it. I didn't go to yoga class expecting anything. But then when I started to realize, oh, wait, there's a voice in your head. Oh, wait, like there's something changing and you're feeling different and you're becoming aware of the fact that you are a being that is more than just your name and your identity and your nationality. Like there's something beyond all of this. Now, I always believed in the soul. It wasn't something that I really questioned, but it wasn't something that I explored too deeply back then. And I feel like these modalities allows us to explore the soul and the soul's journey and why it chose to come here at this particular time. And I feel like working with homeopathy, I did work with homeopathy for a while, because I had really bad period pain. And I wanted to heal that in a more natural way. So talking about another initiation that you gave me, it was through health coaching and becoming a health coach, because you had done it through IIN and then you talked to me about it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do that too. And then that led me to asking the questions as to, wait, there's pain. That means there's a message. Rather than there's pain, oh, let me cover it up with XYZ.
Wow, I love that you touched upon this. I think that was the biggest aha moment for me as a mom. Because with my kids, my first kid, Rayan, I remember when he got really sick and I'd go to the doctor and the doctor would say, okay, no problem. Just give him a fever reducer and then, give him these cough suppressants. And I was like, I go home and I'm like, do I want to suppress what the body is so intelligently doing? And that's when I took a step back and said, all right, I got to do my own research and I got to understand the root cause of this. And I started to look into fever, and then I started to read things like fever is your friend. And fever is an incredible thing that the body does. It raises the body temperature in order to kill the virus or the bacteria or the pathogen. And so when you suppress the fever and you completely release the fever away, the virus and the pathogen is chilling and was like, all right, I'm going to take control over here. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to understand how to make sure my child is comfortable, right? But also working with the body. Same thing with the cough. Because the thing is, let's say I suppress a cough over and over again. It goes deeper into the organism and then it creates something like eczema, right? It comes out in the skin. So it's really a cycle that you need to break. And really trust the body. The body is so intelligent. And the life force energy is so intelligent. And really understanding what happened there and how to work with the body. And ever since then, I've seen great results with my kids. And I do plan on spreading that kind of information. My friend and I, Sara Al-Malki, we're going to create something called Raising Health, where we just kind of spread this knowledge to help moms become the first line of defense. Because it's hard, right? Being a mom already is hard. And then we feel like we want the best for our kids. So we'll go to a doctor and the doctor will treat us. And what I mean by treat us is if you go to a doctor with a child with a fever, right? The doctor's got to have to write something down. You can't walk out of the doctor with nothing written down. You'll kind of feel like, oh, this doctor ain't great. If you tell the doctor, listen, I want to work with the body. So do I have to suppress the fever? Most of the doctors will say, no, you don't have to. and you'll free them of that pressure, right, of having to write down a prescription. So it's really amazing to kind of tap into, homeopathy, herbs, supplements. There's so many tools. And I do believe that children are overdrugged. I feel like children are, there's a lot of suppression happening. And so if we can just take a step back and work with the body, I think we can really help the child's immune system flourish.
I really love all those points, and it reminds me of a story. Actually, when I was 12 years old, I had very high fever for like a week. So I had no other symptoms except for fever. Now, this fever arose because I saw a really bad car accident. And in that car accident, the lady got hit by a car and she flew and she fell, and that was it. And I didn't know what happened to her. And so for a week straight, I'm sick. But the doctor's like, she has no other symptoms. Now, I wasn't somebody that was very expressive about her emotions, so I didn't link 2 and 2 together, obviously, with the incident that I saw. And after a week, my body developed a huge allergic reaction. I broke out in hives. So you talking about like suppression of fever brings out eczema. My body did the same thing. And it was like all these red spots all over my body that I was then taken to the hospital, and I had to take a cortisone shot. And at the time, my dad's cousin, she's a dietitian, but she specializes in something very unique where she checks for like food intolerances with like a magnetic field. And it's very different to like, the regular testing with blood tests. And she had gloves on. And as she was testing me, her gloves became yellow. And she's like, your body is like all toxins. So no wonder you broke out like this. And it turns out I was intolerant to yeast. I had candida overgrowth due probably to all the antibiotics that I took up until that point. And I feel like obviously everybody's very different. I was the type of child that was pretty sensitive to these different things. In retrospect, I'm very much grateful because it's what allowed me to then explore the energetics of things a little bit more. But just you mentioning that story allows me to reflect back on what had happened back then, because it was a moment that clearly marked me since I remember it, 20 years later. And interestingly, when I reached out to you again, or you reached out to me again recently, it was because something very similar had happened to me again. And you prescribed to me 2 homeopathic pills, and it was all emotional. It was like I needed to release certain emotions. That was why my body reacted with these allergies.
That's the incredible thing about homeopathy. It's so just to kind of give you like a little bit of a brief of what homeopathy is, because it's not an easy concept to explain. But if you want to think of it, homeopathy is based on like cures like. Yeah. So it's very much of a similarities medicine. Yeah. Very similar to vaccines, if you want. And so, for example, if you have food poisoning and you're vomiting and you've got diarrhea and such, you would give, homeopathically, you would give the first aid would be arsenicum. Arsenicum is arsenic. It's a heavy metal, and it's highly toxic. So if you would take it, it's highly toxic, but it would produce the symptoms of the food poisoning, of the vomiting and the diarrhea. Now, what they do is they dilute it so much until there's an energetic imprint of it. So it's so well diluted. And then you take it when you're in that food poisoning state, and like cures like, so the body recognizes it, heals it from the root cause. Yeah, it allows the body to now do its thing and really recognize and heal from the root cause. And so that's exactly when you got sick, and you told me that story. I gave you a remedy at a high frequency that was able to go back to the state that you were in when you were 6 years old, and you witnessed that and you got stuck there. So homeopathy can work on a physical, emotional, and mental state. It really understands the body and the mind and the human as a holistic whole. right? So it's not like, oh, Maria got fever, so I will suppress fever. No, I want to work with Maria. What caused the fever, Maria? You know, was it something you witnessed? Was it something you did? There's so many different aspects. So when we take a consultation, we take the human being as a whole, you know, and what they've experienced and what caused that drop in their vital force energy. And so it's so fascinating to really work with this energetic medicine. And that's what really it is. It works with plant species, animal species. It works with minerals and so much. I mean, it's an incredible science, and it dates back, 200 or so years, and it's been really effective in. There was a huge study in Cuba where the United States wasn't supplying any vaccines to the Cubans at the time, and they had this huge outbreak of a disease. And so they used something called homeoprophylaxis, which is vaccinating through homeopathy, and it was so effective. And, unfortunately, a lot of the medical journals wouldn't publish it because homeopathy is very cheap, it's very effective. And that's where I put a big question mark. And a lot of people think of me as a conspiracy theorist. It's because I really want to understand, why are you suppressing all of this information? Why are you pushing it out, and that's where I get very, I would say very frustrated, with the medical industry, with the pharmaceutical industry, and big pharma and all. I get really frustrated.
I feel like being a conspiracy theorist just means that you're a critical thinker. That's how I perceive it. It's just allowing yourself to think for yourself rather than swallow everything that is being said and shared. And I feel like it requires intelligence to think outside of the box too, rather than just following the norm and saying, okay, like, this is what I'm told about this. I'm not going to dig into it myself to see what I find, because this is what is said, right? And I feel like, luckily, I grew up in a household where I had critical thinkers, like my dad, my mom. They questioned a lot of things for sure. And it's interesting because when I started questioning the things that they didn't question, they're like, wait, what are you doing here? But it's like, I'm just doing what you've done in other areas, but I'm just applying it to medicine or healing or mental health. And it was like, okay, maybe, they could see how that can transmit into a whole other field. It's very fascinating. Sometimes people will be critically thinking about a certain topic, like the media or Hollywood, but then they won't go and extend it to like medicine or food. And it's like, you guys, everything is connected.
Yep. Questioning everything is important. It's science. It's science to question everything, right? And there's this incredible study, because a lot of the times when I speak about the spiritual world, people are like, yeah, but it's not tangible. Like, how can you prove it? Like, what are you talking about? And so there's a study I always refer to, and I love it. It's by Dr. Masaru Emoto. And he's an incredible Japanese scientist, biologist. And he studied water. And he studied water under the influence of thoughts. He studied water under the influence of music, of words. And he even, like, the most incredible part is studying water under the influence of thoughts. Right? But the most powerful part of his study was, so I'll give you just a brief about the study, was he took water and he would, let's say, take water from a very polluted river. And so he'd take thousands of pictures of it and then see the structure, and it'll probably be completely distorted. And then he would pray on the water, and then it'll create this amazing crystal structure. And so before and after prayer. And then he would say things like, I love you to the water in different languages, and the crystal structure would change. Thank you, etc. Then he'd say things like, I hate you, you make me sick, and there is no more structure, right? And so the words, our thoughts, make us sick. And then he'd just think to water, and same thing would happen. But the most amazing part was he would tell water Adolf Hitler, for example. And water had this consciousness, and it completely responded. he would tell water Mother Teresa, and then it will create a crystal structure. And if you think about it, we're 70% water. So our words, our thoughts, what kind of music we listen to, anything we are around is really affecting us on that level, on the water that we have in our body, which is 70%. And something that I heard once, and I just absolutely loved it, is that we're electromagnetic beings, right? The sky is electric and the earth is magnetic, and those two energies are moving through us. And we have to become conductors. So we conduct through movement, through dance, through prayer. We find our ways to conduct that electromagnetic energy. And today, scientists are studying the electromagnetic field of the heart, which goes as far as 4 to 5 feet. So people can feel you before they see you, right? And once we really start to understand, and Nikola Tesla said this, right? And they silenced him too, is that once we start to understand the world or the universe in terms of frequency and energy, then we really start to understand that the way the world works. And I think that's just incredibly powerful.
It is the most powerful to realize our own powers too in co-creating this world and the realities that we're living in. And talking about the words, I find that words are medicine. And what you say to yourself and what you don't say to yourself can either heal you or create dis-ease in your body, for sure. And when I was going through my burnout, this was years ago after I quit my job, meditation for me has really allowed me to excavate and really dig deep into the programming that isn't just mine, but that is ancestral in many ways, or collective, or cultural even. And there was this thought that came up, and it was like, you will never get better, you will always be sick. And I remember just sitting with it and being like, so no matter what foods I eat, or how well I eat, or all the practices I do, if this thought is in my consciousness, it's just going to keep playing out in this way. And of course, in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was like, okay, first, the fact that you're even aware that this is in your consciousness, that's great. Let's start with that. And then you'll move through it. You'll set a new intention and you'll work through that in that way. And over the years, I feel like a lot of the things that I used to struggle with before have reduced to an extent where I don't struggle in that way anymore. And it was through the power of my words and what I said to myself. And when I say what I didn't say to myself, there are things like, I really appreciate you. I see you. I love you. I care for you. This is why I'm doing this work. I'm not doing this work because I hate you, or I think that there's anything wrong with you, or that you're not whole. And I feel like that was also the realization, maybe even more recently, like, why are we doing all of this healing? Not because we're broken, but because we actually know that we're whole and we want to integrate that wholeness even more. And even just that switch in perspective for me has changed everything. It's like I'm doing this out of love of self, the small self, but also the greater self, and the love of the divine, the love of this earth, the love of people, the love of service, and the love of my soul's evolution. So I feel like, you know, if you are going through any sort of dis-ease, personally, the way I look at it, it's an invitation to get to know yourself better, to get to meet yourself again in a new way, to bring up to the surface the things that so desperately long to be heard, and so wanting to be seen as well. So I don't see dis-ease as something necessarily bad, but really more so a homecoming in many ways, if you take it as that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love, I always say that every single cell of our body is listening. So as you move through, let's say, a practice of yoga, you know, and that's why I really reiterated the fact that you need to work with your imagination, right, and with your intention. And so when you kind of like tap into the divine source in anything that you do and you allow that to flow through you with ease, the cells are listening and they're responding, and it's an absolutely incredible experience to be in. So definitely, and our hardships bring us closer home. And so it's not that things are happening to me, it's things are happening for me. And so once we're able to see, okay, how is this experience taking me closer to where I need to go, you know, or how is this experience kind of bringing me back home? Yeah, back home to that light, to that source, to that knowing that I am one with everything around me. And it's so humbling, and it's so beautiful to kind of feel that. And you know, children, they understand that, and that's the beautiful thing about children. And it's the small things like just having them go out in the morning without their shoes, connecting to the earth and being in the sun, that electric sun. They really understand, you know, the power of the electrons moving through their body and the sun shining through their, you know, the crown of the head. And they express it in such an incredible way. And they're just so excited to be alive. They understand the gift of being alive. And I think we need to learn more from children. And really observe their excitement. And that's the purest form of joy, and that's the highest vibration. The highest of vibrations is that of love, of that of divine love, and really that blissful state of living, which we're not always going to attain, of course, right? But as long as we know that it's accessible to us at any point, and that we have all the resources.
It's so interesting that you mentioned like children and divine love, because there was something that I read many years ago. I think it's by Osho, who I know is very controversial, but it goes along the lines of you cannot enter the kingdom of God without the heart of an innocent child. And for me, that really stuck with me, because again, coming back to that return back home. So regardless of your hardships, regardless of all of the challenges that you've been through, to return back to your original state, your state of innocence, which is not like be naive and be stupid or a fool in that way, but maybe a fool in the way of, you know what, I'm going to keep believing regardless of what comes my way. I'm going to keep having faith regardless of the amount of darkness I experience. And I feel like the way that you were talking about your kids or kids in general, just playing around and feeling that connection, it is that. That's what they know to be true.
Yeah.
And the way that everything is then set up, we kind of strip them of that knowing with the different conditionings and the different beliefs that we start to pour into them, and they forget. And I feel like for us on this journey, at least, it's been to remember that OG state of being a kid and being playful. And there's like a difference between like being childlike and being childish. It's like be childlike in the sense of like be playful, be excited, wake up in the morning and like jump out of bed. I was sharing this with friends not too long ago. I was like, almost every single night, like when I go to bed, I like run to my bed and I jump. And it's like so simple, but it makes me happy. It's like one of those things where like, I'm just going to jump into bed.
You know, joy is in the most simple things.
Exactly.
You know, and that's the most amazing thing. And like, for me, I think the one thing I struggled with my entire life was anger. I had a lot of it. And I still kind of, you know, it still comes up a lot. And when I watch my kid, I really understand that anger is a creative energy. And you just need to know how to use it. So being angry is not a bad thing. It's just, okay, I have this incredible energy. Now, how can I alchemize that energy? How can I use that for something else? And yeah, and it's just really, its energy is kind of recyclable. So you can play with it and you can shift it and you can change it. And this is something that great Qigong and Tai Chi masters have understood, that you can manipulate energy. And it's an incredible experience when you come back to understanding how energy works and how we can become masters of it. You know? Yeah. And definitely children are such great teachers. My children have taught me so much. I mean, definitely before becoming a mom, I was not as health conscious, right, at all. From the smallest things, like now I walk into the kitchen, it's what type of pot I'm using. You know, it's what type of salt I'm using, what type of oil I'm using. It's really being cautious of these kind of things and not being obsessive. I don't want to be obsessive at all, but it's really important to kind of know what you're putting into this vehicle, this temple, this body. Yeah, starting from the kitchen, starting from the pot that you're using. And then something that we do at home is we do lots of heavy metal detoxes. You know, we do lots of parasite cleanses. And a lot of people think that this is a little bit off the charts and a little bit crazy. But I have a really good friend of mine who had a son. He was 2 years old at the time, and he couldn't speak. And, you know, at 2, we don't really have that much expectations, but we do expect the mama, the baba, a few words here and there. But he was mute completely, wouldn't speak at all. It was just all jumbly words. He became 2.5, still hasn't spoken. So she contacted me and said, hey, I'm having this issue. My son's not speaking. And so I said, can you trust me? And let's do a heavy metal detox for your son. And 3 weeks in, he started to say 20 or so words. And it was absolutely incredible. We worked with zeolite, it's a binder, and we just kind of released some of those toxins that are all around us and sometimes that we inject within ourselves through vaccines or such. And her son is thriving now. He's incredible. But sometimes we see that with parasites. Sometimes we see it with parasites where somebody's having some real bad autoimmune. And then we do a parasite cleanse. We prepare the body with a heavy metal detox, and then we do a parasite cleanse, and it's just like, wow. You know, they find that freedom to a lot of things that science couldn't explain. Or, you know, you go to the doctor and they'd say, there's nothing we could do here. You know, we don't understand where this is coming from. And so we're going to suppress it, right? And so I would highly recommend everybody listening to look into doing heavy metal detoxes, to look into doing parasite cleanses. I mean, we deworm our pets, right? They're mammals. We're mammals too. We deworm them every 6 months. I think it's something that we as humans need to do as well. Especially if you're eating raw food. And raw food even means salads. Right? Raw food means raw sushi, and a lot of different things. And it's just important to kind of always cleanse your body from these parasites.
What are some of the symptoms, perhaps, that you might share with us in terms of how can I know if I have parasites?
So we definitely all have parasites.
Okay.
Right? We all have parasites. I mean, we definitely all have parasites.
It's part of like the gut microbiome with the yeast and bacteria and viruses.
Yeah.
Parasites are also included.
A huge part of the microbiome. And the thing is with parasites is that they can come up in different type of symptoms, and it shows up for people in different ways, you know?
Right.
And I will say things that are a little bit controversial here, but it could start with simplicity, like simple things like brain fog, eczema, skin issues, right, constipation, etc. And then it varies. The scale can go up to autoimmune and even to cancer, right? And so I would always suggest really working with a functional doctor, and it's better if you get a functional doctor and a homeopath, part of your team, and then working through that. And you're going to get some die-off symptoms or detox symptoms, which will not be as fun as we would like. But it's an incredible journey. And usually the parasite cleanse is, if you're doing the herbal way, is around 2 to 3 weeks. And then you really do feel so much better. Some people say their skin is clearer. Some people's eczema completely disappears. Some people's asthma disappears. There's so much that happens before and after a parasite cleanse or even a heavy metal detox. And back to the whole kind of suppression of this type of knowledge, these are kind of things that we're not seeing in our science journals, right? Same thing with Dr. Masaru Emoto. A lot of people that I speak to have no idea about this study, you know? And so it's a little bit frustrating that people will completely just kind of throw this knowledge away and say, okay, I doubt it, I don't believe it. It's not real science. But if you really take the time to study or to look into how effective it's been for people, read up on people's stories and try it out yourself. You're not going to lose anything and you're not going to harm yourself doing it. And I hope you see great results through it.
For sure. And I feel like ultimately, talking about people that might not want to go through this path or test this out because they're just going to go the medical route or whatever that means for them to go down that path. I feel like it has a lot to do with wanting quick results right away. And so the next question would be, do you get quick results with this approach? Personally, when I had candida overgrowth, it was a bit slower. And I obviously had to eliminate a lot of the foods, and I had the die-off symptoms, which were hell, like hot, cold, emotional, crying all the time. But it was such a good detox because it also helped me resurface deeper emotions. And it was through that I actually ended up quitting my job. Because I had the courage to and the confidence to, because when we're talking about the gut microbiome, obviously we're not just talking about the intestines, we're talking it from the mouth all the way out. So when you're healing that whole pathway, everything clears out, including your voice, including your expression, including what you start to say out loud. And again, that's the thing. A lot of people, when they try to treat something, they try to treat just the head or just the throat or just the gut or just the toe because they might have gout or something. But it's like, it's the whole system working together.
Exactly.
And again, it might take a little bit more time because it's not a quick fix. And at least on my journey, it's like, you know, you cover up one hole and then the other one pops up and you go there and you start tending to that and another thing pops up and you're like, where is the root cause?
Yeah. Look, I don't want to overwhelm people because a lot of the time people don't want to invest in this long journey. Sometimes with a parasite cleanse, it's really fast. Or with a heavy metal detox, like I said about my friend's son, it was 2 weeks in, right? And sometimes with homeopathy, it's just one tablet. It's just a one pellet that does the work. And sometimes it's a process, right? Because it uncovers layers. And so it's really about, first of all, how toxic of a state are you in? And how willing you are to go on the journey. And the incredible thing is once you start to see results, it's addictive. It's amazing because then you're surfing and you're just going to want to keep on surfing those waves. A short answer would be, if you're paying attention, it's quick results. If you're really paying attention, because quick results means sometimes it's the small things that change, right? And it's really paying attention and to understanding what is changing. Because things will change once you kind of start your healing process. And it's just really being that sensitive to observe the change.
I agree. And I feel like that's perhaps where connecting to silence and stillness within allows you to really observe those changes. Movement, yoga, meditation, journaling. Again, we're talking about a holistic approach. It's not just, one area of your life that's going to change. It really does have a huge ripple effect on everything. And personally, going on this journey and saying yes to this, even though it was unconventional, even though it wasn't the way that people thought I should be going, especially like I had really bad acne for many years. And the way that people spoke about it was like, why don't you go to the dermatologist and get Accutane?
Yeah, exactly. And then just suppress it.
Suppress it,
You know,
just
exactly.
clear it.
And they have to understand that the body is an incredible ecosystem, if that's a word we can use for the body.
Yes.
And to approach it holistically is important. When you go to a functional doctor, he's going to ask you how you're sleeping, how you're eating. He's going to ask you about so many different things that affect you on an emotional, physical, and energetic level.
Yeah.
So it's so important to see a person as a whole. So yeah, most of the time they'll give you Roaccutane and then just suppress it. And that my mother-in-law, actually, she's fascinating because she had an acne problem and she did take the Roaccutane at the time. And many years later, she saw a homeopath and then she took the remedy and it all came back up. It all resurfaced, and then it came out and then released it. And that's the vital force. When you have a cough or you have a fever or you have eczema, it's the body releasing, detoxing, letting go. And so when you come into a class with me, for example, and we're doing movement medicine, we start off by shaking, by tapping, by releasing. We need to empty out the vessel first. We need to move stagnant energy out. So if that's shaking in the morning, if that's tapping, if that's using a loud sigh out of an exhale, whatever it is, to empty out before you recharge. So before you're able to kind of really work with the body, you need to just release a little bit. And yeah, so once you start to recharge, you can work with light, you can work with healthy food, whatever is your path, think first, release, and then recharge.
I really love that. And I feel like it's actually something that I really honor. It's that cycle between emptying myself and then recharging it and nourishing it after, rather than just putting something new on something old, but the old is still there. It's like, what are you really doing? And I remember one of my functional doctors when I was going through the whole Candida cleanse, and I kept asking her, should I take probiotics? Like, everybody's telling me I should take probiotics for Candida. She's like, what are you going to do? You're just going to put new bacteria into an environment that's full of bad ones? Like, it's not going to do anything. You always have to remove the old carpet first before you put a new one. And that really stuck with me because, again, we have a lot of these, we're overloaded, honestly, with information today. So much information everywhere. And it's like, do this, no, don't do that. Eat this, no, don't eat that. Like, live this way, no, don't live that way. And again, it's so bio-individual. Everybody is so different. And you can't say one size is going to fit everyone. And at the same time, I feel like there's certain things that can apply for everyone. And I feel like that's one of them. Like, empty first before you recharge or replenish, because you're just going to feel the difference. And because the emptying of self will bring up the uncomfortable emotions or the uncomfortable thoughts that need to be cleared in order for the new program to come in and actually stick properly, rather than it just kind of like floating around, but it's not like fully integrated.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's so important. It's really important to empty out. And I think, once we are kind of like back to the concept of movement medicine, for example, once we're working with a release, and again, the release can look as simple as an exhale. It can be an intentional exhale, and try that. If you're at home watching this, I want you to try that. I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to use that full sound of the exhale, the length of the exhale. And so I think I'm going to leave you guys with that intentional exhale, release it. And then as you take the next deep breath, I want you to fill your lungs with love, with divine love, with that unconditional love. And I think that's the small path in to a world within yourself that you're just going to really enjoy.
I would say that too. I really have to say, yes, people might sometimes be afraid of this path. Maybe, I don't know. It's not always the simplest or the easiest or the one that doesn't come with any challenges, for sure. But at the same time, I don't think I would have stayed on this path this long if there wasn't so many great things to uncover too. Like the portals, the dimensions, the layers of self that are revealed through this journey of medicine and healing and like exploring. It's really an exploration of all the parts of you, literally, from your mind to your gut to your womb to your throat to...
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I think the greatest medicine of all, and I know this might sound a little bit cheesy, but the greatest medicine of all is the medicine of love.
Yeah.
It's love. It's love, love, love. And I think that's what healed or is healing me through the process, because I'm not totally healed. I'm still working through it. But that divine love, not that romantic love, I'm talking divine love.
Yeah.
And if you can move with it, if you can breathe with it, if you can eat with it, if you can flow with it, then I think you're on a good path.
I agree. And I feel like something also that's just popping up recently, it's like, what is that love? Like if it had like branches, I feel like one of the branches would be authenticity. I feel like that's been coming up to the surface a lot. Personally, I realized a lot of the diseases that I had came from a lack of authenticity and suppressing parts of self. So I feel like what heals is being witnessed in your truth, regardless of what truth that might be, even if it is unconventional or different or triggering, just to be your authentic self, just to be. I feel like, we always say just be. Right? Like just be. It's like just be yourself. And I feel like that beingness, that authentic realness, that vulnerability, that rawness allows us to feel more free. It also allows us to connect to other people. And that's also what, for me, has allowed me to open up even more to love in all its shapes and forms. So,
absolutely. I think, definitely once you come to the state of love and you accept yourself, and you understand that you are here for purpose and that you are here to learn, but also to share. There's something you're here for. There's purpose for you. You matter. And to step into your power, I think this is when you will magnetize what is for you. And sometimes, when we're going through a hardship, we pray for patience. We pray for, we pray for courage. And then maybe God, universe, whatever, brings you challenges to exercise that. So it's amazing. And stepping into your authenticity is easy, but it's easy because it's coming back home to yourself and saying, okay, this is who I am and I accept it and I'm just going to flow from that state. And I think it's a lot harder to put on the masks, and it's a lot harder. But people tend to take that hard route. And I think, if there was an advice that we could give during this podcast is really come back home and really try to understand what's your dharma? Why are you here on earth? What is something that we are all born with a gift, as small as it is. So come home to that and then share it because you're important and your light must shine.
I agree. Thank you so much, Nat, for this beautiful conversation. I feel like my energy is shifted just listening to you speak. So thank you. And just because there was when you were talking about pray for patience and then talking about how the universe might give you a test, it's like, ask God for patience and then he gives you a queue at the bank. It's like you asked for it.
I didn't hear
right?
that.
You didn't know that
it.
one? It's so
it.
good. It's like, if you ask God for patience, he will give you a queue at the bank, or she will give you a queue at the bank. But, the way you want to see.
Absolutely beautiful. I love that. I'll use that one for sure.
And it's just this reminder that you got what you wanted.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
not necessarily in the package that you thought.
Yeah, we just have to listen. We need to see with our third eye. So activate that third eye and see we've got this intuition. We have all the tools. We just need to tap in, really tap into that source. And it's an incredible place to be, and it's an ongoing journey for this life and many lives to come.
Yes, many. I don't know how many. According to an Indian astrologer, I have one more to go. It's like, okay, not bad, not bad. I do want to come back.
One more to go is pretty good.
Pretty good. I mean, I have some people that have no more to go. This is apparently their last one.
I mean, listen, the Earth School is a hard one.
Yeah.
You know, and those who chose to be here to learn, it's not an easy place to be. It's only for courageous souls. So if you're on Earth, you are one courageous warrior.
I do believe that. That's such a nice way to put it. Yeah, I do agree. That's so funny. Thank you, Nat.
I love you,
I love
Riri.
you.
I love you so much.
Me
Thanks for
too.
having me.
Thank
This was
you.
so enjoyable. And
It was.
I hope...
minus the microphones and the lights and the recording, it feels like we were just talking in my living room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It always feels real and authentic with you. I love you.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you. And I'll give you a hug.
Yes.
Oh, love you.